It was one of those nights where everything felt perfect, like the kind you see in those cheesy romance movies. Except, my story didn't end with happily ever after. It ended with me standing there, feeling like the biggest fool on earth, while my girlfriend, no, my ex-girlfriend now, sat there looking like a deer caught in headlights. My name's Daniel, I'm 35, and this is the story of how I dodged a bullet, even though it felt like I'd just been hit by one. For 4 years, I thought Riley was it. She's 30, works in marketing, and had this way of making you feel like the most important person in the world when she wanted to. She was ambitious, like, almost to a fault. Always chasing the next promotion, staying late at work, and making it clear that she didn't want to settle for ordinary. That was her word. Ordinary. She wanted a big house, fancy vacations, and a life that looked like it came out of some glossy magazine. And me? I work with my hands. Blue collar, steady job, nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and gives me enough to live comfortably. I'm not the kind of guy who's into flashy stuff, and I thought Riley was okay with that. At least, she pretended to be. When I decided to propose, I knew it had to be something special. Riley deserved that, or so I thought at the time. I saved up for months, skipping nights out with the guys, and even taking on extra shifts just to buy her a ring that I knew she'd love. I mean, it wasn't some $1 million rock, but it was classy, elegant, something I thought she'd appreciate. The proposal was supposed to be perfect. I planned it all out. A nice dinner at this fancy restaurant she'd been wanting to try. Flowers, candles, the whole 9 yards. Her parents were even in on it, and they were thrilled. Well, mostly her mom. Her dad's one of those quiet types who just nods along. Anyway, I thought I had it all figured out. The night came, and everything was going smoothly. Riley was dressed to the nines, and she looked stunning, like always. I was nervous as hell, but I played it cool, or at least I thought I did. The moment came, and I got down on one knee right there in the middle of the restaurant. People were watching, and it felt like time stopped for a second. I pulled out the ring, said my piece, and waited for her to say yes. Except she didn't. Instead, she just froze. Her eyes got wide, and her face went pale. You know that feeling when you realize you've made a huge mistake? That was the look she had. Then she started mumbling, something about needing more time, not being ready, and could I give her a few weeks to think about it? A few weeks? Are you kidding me? This wasn't a job offer. It was supposed to be the rest of our lives. The restaurant went dead quiet. People were whispering, and I felt every set of eyes on me. I forced a smile, stood up, and told her it was okay, but inside I was crushed. Humiliated. I mean, who does that? Who lets their boyfriend go through all that trouble just to leave him hanging in public? We left the restaurant in silence, and I drove her home. She kept saying she was sorry and that she didn't mean to hurt me, but her words felt hollow. I dropped her off and went straight to my buddy Jake's place. Jake's been my best friend since college, and if anyone could help me make sense of this mess, it was him. When I told Jake what happened, he didn't sugarcoat it. "Danny, you've got to think about why she didn't say yes," he said. "I mean, what's really going on here? Is she having doubts about you, or is there something else going on?" At first, I wanted to defend Riley. I told him she was just shocked and needed time to process. But the more I thought about it, the more it started to eat at me. Why wasn't she ready? We'd been together for 4 years. 4 years. What more was she waiting for? Was it me? Was I not enough for her? Or was there someone else? That's when Jake brought up the possibility that made my stomach turn. "Look, man," he said, "I don't want to freak you out, but maybe she's got something going on that you don't know about. Another guy, a fling, something she needs to end before she can commit to you." I didn't want to believe it. Riley wasn't the cheating type, or at least I didn't think she was. But Jake's words stuck with me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe there was more to this than she was letting on. And when I mentioned this to the rest of our friend group, they didn't hold back either. Everyone had their theories. Some thought she was scared of commitment, others thought she was too focused on her career to settle down. And a few even agreed with Jake that there might be someone else in the picture. Over the next few days, I started noticing little things that I hadn't paid much attention to before, like how Riley was always on her phone, texting or scrolling through social media. or how she'd started working late more often, even when I knew her office wasn't that busy. And then there were the nights she'd go out with her friends, coming home tipsy and acting distant. Maybe I was reading too much into it, but the doubts were there, and they were eating me alive. I didn't want to confront her. Not yet, anyway. I needed more time to think, to figure out what I wanted to do next. Part of me still wanted to believe that this was all a misunderstanding, that Riley really did just need time to process everything. But another part of me couldn't ignore the red flags. And the more I thought about it, the more I started to wonder if maybe Jake was right. Maybe I was better off without her. After a few sleepless nights and endless conversations with my buddies, I made the decision I never thought I'd make. I called it off. The proposal, the relationship, everything. It wasn't easy, but when I really sat down and thought about it, I couldn't ignore the facts. Riley had refused me. 4 years together, and when it came time to take the next step, she bailed. If she was really the one, she wouldn't have hesitated. Love doesn't make you need weeks to think it over. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself there had to be some other explanation. Maybe I'd rushed things, or maybe I hadn't done enough to show her how serious I was. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was making excuses for her. If Riley truly loved me, there wouldn't be a question. So after a lot of back and forth in my head, I decided to trust my gut and the advice of the people who cared about me most. When I told Riley I wanted to take marriage off the table, her reaction was not what I expected. She didn't apologize or try to make things right. Instead, she got defensive. "What do you mean you're calling it off?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Did something happen?" Her reaction threw me off. It wasn't sadness or regret, it was confusion. Like she couldn't understand why I wouldn't wait around for her to decide if I was good enough to marry. That was the first red flag. The second came when I tried to get some straight answers out of her. I wanted to know why she'd hesitated. What was holding her back? Was it me? Was it us? Was there someone else? And that's when things took a turn. Instead of answering my questions, Riley started twisting things around. "Why are you acting like this, Daniel?" she asked, her tone shifting to exasperation. "You're being so dramatic. I just needed time to process. Marriage is a big deal, you know." I wasn't buying it. Her words didn't match her actions. If all she needed was time, why didn't she say yes and figure the details out later? It wasn't like I was rushing to the altar the next day. I told her as much, but she just kept doubling down. "You're overthinking everything," she said, throwing her hands up. I didn't say no. I just needed to think about it. "You're making this way bigger than it needs to be." Her words felt like gaslighting, plain and simple. She was trying to make me feel like I was the one overreacting, like I was the problem. But I wasn't having it. I told her point blank that if she really loved me, there shouldn't have been any hesitation. Marriage is a big deal, sure, but love isn't something you need to think about. Either you're in or you're not. That's when her toxic side really started to show. Instead of taking any accountability, she got angry. She started flipping the script, accusing me of not trusting her and making me out to be the bad guy. "Why are you even asking me these questions?" she snapped. "Do you think I don't love you? Is that what this is about? You're so insecure, Daniel. I can't deal with this right now." I stayed calm, calmer than I felt anyway. I told her I wasn't insecure, but I needed to understand why she couldn't commit. That's when she shut down completely. She crossed her arms, refused to make eye contact, and started scrolling on her phone like I wasn't even in the room. It was like talking to a wall. After a few minutes of silence, she suddenly stood up and said, "I'm done with this conversation. I'll get someone to pick me up." Before I could say anything, she was on the phone, calling her so-called friend to come get her. When that friend showed up, my suspicions were confirmed. It wasn't one of her girlfriends or a family member. It was a guy I didn't recognize. He pulled up in a flashy car, rolled down the window, and gave her this smug little grin. Riley didn't even look back at me as she grabbed her bag and walked out the door. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. Riley was never really mine. Maybe she cared about me in her own way, but I wasn't her priority. She liked the idea of being with me, but when it came down to it, she wasn't ready or willing to give up whatever else she had going on. And that guy in the car? He wasn't just a friend. I didn't need her to tell me that. I stood there for a long time after she left, just staring at the empty space where she'd been. Part of me wanted to chase after her, to demand answers, to yell and scream and let her know how much she'd hurt me, but I didn't. What was the point? The truth was staring me right in the face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. It was over. Really over. And I was done fighting for someone who wouldn't fight for me. A few weeks went by after that night, and life started to feel normal again. Or at least, a new kind of normal. At first it was rough. The silence in my house felt heavier, and every little reminder of Riley stung. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to feel lighter. Like I'd shed this weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. My friends were a huge help, especially Jake, who made it his personal mission to keep me busy. I threw myself into work, picked up some hobbies I'd been neglecting, and for the first time in a long time, I started to focus on myself. It wasn't easy, but it felt good. No more second guessing, no more walking on eggshells, no more wondering if I was enough. I was done trying to make someone happy who didn't appreciate me. And then, just when I thought I'd turned a corner, guess who decided to reach out? Yep, Riley. The audacity. It started with a text. Just a simple, "Hey, how are you?" Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't completely shattered my trust and walked out of my life with another guy. I didn't respond. I didn't owe her anything. And honestly, I didn't even know what I'd say if I did. A day later, she tried again. This time, it was a long message about how she'd been thinking about me and wanted to talk. She said she was sorry for how things ended and that she missed me. Missed me? Now she missed me? The same woman who couldn't decide if she wanted to spend the rest of her life with me now suddenly realized I was worth her time? Yeah, right. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly what this was. Riley wasn't reaching out because she'd had some epiphany about how amazing I was. She was reaching out because whatever she thought she had with that other guy or guys didn't work out. I was plan B, or maybe even plan C or D, and that was a hard no for me. The icing on the cake came when she started calling. Not just once or twice, but multiple times over a couple of days. It was like she couldn't believe I wasn't biting. Riley wasn't used to not getting her way, and the fact that I was ignoring her must have been driving her crazy. Good. Let her stew. I thought about answering just to tell her off, but what was the point? It wouldn't change anything, and I wasn't going to waste my energy on someone who didn't deserve it. So instead, I did the most satisfying thing I could think of. I blocked her. No explanation, no drama, no fanfare, just silence. She didn't deserve even a fraction of my attention anymore. And let me tell you, that felt amazing. For once, I wasn't the one chasing after her, trying to fix things or make her happy. I wasn't second-guessing myself or wondering what I'd done wrong. I was in control, and I wasn't going to let her drag me back into her mess. The best part, I realized I'd already won. Riley thought she could come back into my life like nothing happened, but I wasn't that guy anymore. I'd moved on. I was happier, healthier, and honestly, better off without her. Blocking her wasn't just about cutting her out. It was about choosing myself for the first time in years. And that was the ultimate victory. So, yeah, Riley might have walked out on me that night, but in the end, I got the last laugh. She'll probably never admit it, but I know she realized what she lost. And me? I'm just glad I figured it out before I wasted any more time on someone who didn't deserve me.